Welcome back everyone to ZumaFan, and in this video I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons why the sub-series is ruining the Paw Patrol. So, let's dive in. Now at number 5 we have gear and vehicles. Now I put this on the list here because they aren't the biggest issue with the sub-series, but unlike all the rest, they are actually probably some of the only things that come out of the sub-series that I know are always going to be good. Mostly because the design of the gear and the suits and the vehicles are always fantastic no matter what. But this is, however, an issue. Now, of course, there are some sub-series where the gear and vehicles are not exactly the same as all the others. But when you actually look at most of them, all the gear and vehicles are basically exactly the same as the original ones from the first few seasons before the sub-series was actually introduced, when you actually see what the vehicles and gear actually do. Now, for example, you can see that in Rescue Knights, all the gear and stuff that they have actually are almost exactly the same as their original gear. Sort of like you can see that Rubble has a catapult on his back. Now, of course, his shovel could already do that. Now, if you go back to the original few seasons back when they were using the original gear that they had, you can see that Rubble's Scooper actually does almost the exact same thing as this catapult. In fact, if anything, his Scooper is actually more important than the catapult because the catapult can only launch things while his little digger on his back can actually dig, throw, pick up stuff. So, of course, the catapult is actually less effective than the original gear. And in fact, if you look at the same sub-series, which is Rescue Knights, you can see that Marshall is also almost exactly the same. Now, of course, you can see that his water cannon is, of course, different. It's a different design altogether, but it's almost the exact same thing. And the effect is exactly the same. It just shoots water out of it. It just looks different. If you look at Sea Patrol, Zuma has his new diving vehicle that comes with 2 arms. Now, of course, if you know his original diving hovercraft, and it came with a robotic arm, which is almost exactly the same as that one, except this time it comes with an extra one. Even going back to Rescue Knights, you can see that Skye has a very similar looking helicopter to the original helicopter that she had back in the early seasons. It also comes with all the same. So you could basically see that with these examples that there are a lot of these machines and gear that they come with in these sub-series that are just almost exactly the same, if not the exact same, just different design to give off the illusion that it is something different. One of the only sub-series, however, that does try its best to change the gear is Mission Paw, which is easily my favorite of all the sub-series, because all this gear is actually brand new. Zuma doesn't actually just come with another buoy or light or something like that. He comes with a sonar and a drone. Rocky can see through walls. Chase can scan things. There's a lot that these characters come with within that sub-series that really changed it up. However, a lot of these sub-series now, and this is a real problem because now it just feels like as if it's just same things that they are using just with a different design, and it really does feel like as if all this new gear and vehicles just comes across as quite pointless. And so that is why this is at number 5. Now, you got new characters released within the sub-series. Of course, I'm not going to bring up Everest or Tracker, simply because they were not introduced within anything I could say is a sub-series, so I'm going to stick with the characters that I know of that have been shown off within the sub-series and are going to be sticking with that series. The reason why I say these new characters are worthless, I really do mean this, is because that a lot of the time their abilities or their gifts or gear really don't do much of anything, even in the stories that they are brought into. And you can see within Mighty Pups, that sub-series that everyone forgot about, you can see that Tuck and Ella don't really have any abilities that can really be used. Of course, they do try their best to use their abilities to trick the Ladybird, and that's really about it, and prevent her antics. But for the most part, they're really just not needed, and their abilities just like cannot do anything. Tuck can get really small, and as far as I'm concerned, they don't really need a pup to to get small and to go into places and take it out on this ant-sized level, because that's just never really needed. And then, of course, you got Ella, who grows really tall, and of course, that's not really needed, even though the writers really try their best. Even though a lot of those scenarios are, of course, just not even that big of a deal that anyone within the regular team could actually just succeed at if they put their minds to it. Rex from that Dino Rescue sub-series is just absolutely pointless. This character can only talk to dinosaurs, of which he only goes roar, roar, roar. And then that is it, which means that all the dinosaurs have the exact same language, apparently, even though they're different species altogether. And, of course, that's not at all needed, because the Paw Patrol were already dealing with animals beforehand, even though they never spoke the animals' language, and the animals seemed to understand what the Paw Patrol were talking about. Rex also comes with this grapple arm, which, of course, is not really useful, especially since we have all sorts of characters that could do that, with Zuma with a buoy, you know, or Chase with the net, and you got Sky with her grapple. Hell, even Rocky within the new seasons has his tools updated, so now it's more like Rex's, which all these pups, including Rocky now, make Rex even more useless at this point. Wildcat, who's probably in here for, who knows, maybe a political reason, you know, because of what was going on in the real world at the time or something like that with all the complaints. But there is no reason for him specifically to be in the show, and it all around doesn't make any sense whatsoever anyways. It just really seems that these characters are just very much used just to sort of put new characters in there to keep people sort of entertained. And when you put your mind to it and you really think about what the characters are doing, what they're being used for, what their purpose actually is, and how useful they actually are, you really come to see that these characters are just absolutely pointless and are just not needed. Now, of course, we're going to see 2 new sub-series with new characters joining, which is Al and Coral. Now, of course, I know that this is obvious that these characters are probably just going to do absolutely nothing, and the Paw Patrol are going to be capable of doing these things that these new pups joining the team can do. And of course, once this is all over, these characters will never be seen again, because these characters are kept within their respective sub-series, so they'll never actually come back to the main show. And so these characters really do just feel like as if they are padding out these sub-series the best way they possibly can, even though when you actually think about it, they are just not needed, pointless, and a lot of the time the Paw Patrol can just take care of these issues by themselves. And so that's what I gotta say about these new characters. Coming in third is villains. Now, this one is rather interesting because depending on which sub-series you actually watched, you can be getting a very good villain or the worst type of villain. Now, of course, talking about this, you can have Ladybird, who is quite terrible, obnoxious, and the character really just comes across as just irritating, and she really has absolutely no charisma, or she doesn't really have any power to really demand the screen like some of the other villains. She just really comes across as weaker, even though she has super strength and flight as one of her powers. Now, of course, her design is very good, and I think the voice actor does what she can do with what she's given, but the character is just not, it's just not good at all. But on the other end, when you look at Mission Paw, you get one of the best villains, if not the best villain of the show, which is Sweetie, a character who, even though does not actually have all the powers or the abilities as all the other villains within these sub-series, she actually comes across as probably the deepest, if not the deepest character within the Paw Patrol series, even though she is a villain. She's very demanding and just absolutely fantastic. But the motivation of the characters, and there's a lot of these villains, are actually very weak and are not actually thought out. For example, the newest one, Claw, now he just wants to be seen as the greatest knight ever, And instead of him just doing his job to the best of his ability, he decides to break the rules and try to ride a dragon, even though according to the books within Barkingburg, the rules actually says that you cannot go anywhere near the dragons. So to prove himself, he decides to selfishly go out and find a dragon and try to ride it and bring it back to Barkingburg, even though he knows as a knight being trained within all this, he is told not to do this, so he does it anyways. If the character thought about it, he would probably be thrown out immediately right afterwards. So this character really just doesn't know what he is doing. And of course, the motivation to really show the castle, the princess, and everyone else there that he is the best knight by breaking the rules is just pure stupidity. Or Sid Swashbuckle, who just steals stuff because he needs it or he just wants it, which doesn't make much sense at all. Pirates, of course, always are thirsty for more and more money, more gold, and all that kind of thing, which makes sense, but he is not even going for that. He is just stealing like skateboards, rubber duckies, and all sorts of random junk that no one cares about. Or Ladybird, who just really likes her reflection, and so she steals stuff that is shiny. These villains just do not have good motivations whatsoever, and their reasoning makes absolutely no sense. A lot of these villains just are absolutely awful, and it's probably for the best that they stay in their respective sub-series to where they can never ever return again. Character development. Now, I am talking about the original group here, the original 6 Paw Patrol members, because as I said before, at number 4 with the new characters are really just pointless and to keep people interested in the sub-series, even though there is not much going on. So I am here to talk about the characters' development within the sub-series because as far as I'm concerned, almost nobody gets anything special to do within the sub-series when it comes to the original members. Most of the time they are there, they do their job, whatever that is, and the sub-series will just end around 4 or 5 episodes or so. And you really do feel like as if the characters just really haven't gone through anything other than whatever mission they were actually doing. Contrast this with the original few seasons where characters would actually develop and change and grow as characters, and you would actually watch them play, live their lives, and do things that they would actually like to do, and you really got the sense that you were learning about who these characters actually were, and you were almost growing with them. But ever since the sub-series were introduced, it's been more about the missions, the gear, the new characters, the villains, and all these other things that all the original 6 have almost been undercut by all of these different things. And the original 6, unfortunately, is being sidelined in their own show. And so they don't really have much to develop. There has been some attempts, of course, I can only bring up some of them, which is with the new sub-series, which is Rescue Knights, that apparently is now over, and in there are the 2 characters, which is Marshall and Rubble, that actually try to be given something to actually do. Where Marshall fails, he doesn't close the door during one and he stays inside the room so that Claw can steal the magic tooth, and the idea is that he develops to become more mature, maybe, because there's a lot of other missions before the sub-series where Marshall would almost go through the exact same thing. And as far as I'm concerned, they are kind of just reusing the development that they had before because they don't really know what to do with the original 6 characters. And Rubble is almost exactly the same, where they reused one of the characters, I guess you could say, developing moments from one of the earlier seasons, because Rubble can't seem to hit anything correctly, and he can't seem to throw it on the exact spot that he wants it, which is almost a reuse of that one episode with Zuma where he can't hit the bullseye with the lizard. And so this is almost like a reuse, but with a different character. So this really proves to me that the writers and the director don't really know how to deal with the original 6 characters, and so they just have them do basically whatever, and they're not really concerned with helping the characters grow in any significant way. And so when they actually come up with a way to help them grow, maybe the idea is that you're just going to have to keep degrading the characters within the episode so that they can get back to where they used to be. And so the subseries has this huge problem now where if they're not trying their best to do something original, they're just going to be stealing development from older episodes and rewriting them to a new character within the subseries because they really have no idea on how to handle the original 6 members, the original group that started this all off, and they don't know how to deal with them. And so this is one of the biggest issues with the subseries. And now we are here at number 1, money. Now, we all know money speaks louder than words, and the subseries will unfortunately continue to keep going on because kids and adults that buy these toys or collect them or whichever are not going to want the exact same toys of the original 6 members as they used to be. And so when they introduce the subseries as a way to make brand new toys, of course, of the original members with new gear and all sorts of things like that, everyone went crazy for them. To have something new to actually collect, for something new to be played with, they decided to keep on making these subseries, almost now 3 every single season now. And so this is the main issue with the subseries, and this is the real reason why these subseries are going to be ruining the main show, is because, unfortunately, more people that buy these toys is telling Nickelodeon, the writers and the creators, that we prefer the subseries over the main show, over the main 6 members, over all these great things are now being pushed aside for the sake of making more money. It's great to see this show that was once something truly special fall so hard simply because a company wants to make money and they prefer the money over writing good stories with very fantastic characters, or once were fantastic characters. So the money will always be louder. But if you take all this away, if you take away the cool looking gear and the vehicles as well, and if you take away the new characters and you just look at the subseries as is, what is there that makes it different from the show itself, from just regular episodes? Absolutely nothing. And that is the best way I can describe the subseries. It's just nothing. So I want to thank all of you for watching this video. It took a long time. I was sick, coughing a lot, and so I'm just glad that I'm able to finish this video and for you to check it out. I hope that my feelings could be conveyed the best way that they could, and that you can ultimately understand why the subseries to me is quite possibly the worst thing that the show is doing at the moment. I'm sorry that I didn't talk about every single subseries, every villain, every moment of all these episodes. It's just a long video, and I don't really have time to get through every single thing in detail. And for that, I apologize. So, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you later.